Aerosmith postponing a half-dozen dates on their farewell tour after frontman Steven Tyler injured his vocal cords during a performance.
For more than 5 decades, Steven Tyler lived as if the music would never stop. As the unmistakable voice of Aerosmith, he built a career that few rock stars could ever match. Then, one night in 2023, everything changed. What followed wasn't a single defining moment, but a series of deeply personal setbacks.
Aerosmith fans worried his surgery could have a long-term impact on the band. Fear not. Steve says there are no plans for the group to stop rocking. There's a new album on the way and they're going back on tour.
That quietly brought one of rock's greatest careers to an unexpected turning point. What really happened after Steven Tyler left the stage? And how did one of music's most unstoppable performers reach the end of an extraordinary era? Join us as we uncover the tragic story behind Steven Tyler's final chapter. The last show nobody knew was the last show. 3 shows were all the Peace Out farewell tour managed before everything collapsed. 3 shows out of 40 planned dates, spread across arenas from New York to Los Angeles to Boston's Fenway Park, designed to give one of rock's greatest bands a proper goodbye after more than 5 decades on the road. The tour launched on September 2nd, 2023, in Philadelphia. Steven Tyler, then 75, walked out in front of a sold-out crowd and opened with Back in the Saddle, an opening that felt appropriate enough to be scripted. The set ran 18 songs, and everyone went home satisfied. And then the show in Elmont, New York on September 9th changed everything. That 3rd show turned out to be the last concert Aerosmith will ever play. Nobody knew it at the time. The next announcement was that Steven had sustained a vocal injury during the Elmont performance. Bleeding vocal cords, which were concerning but manageable. The band postponed a handful of shows and planned to return. Then the second announcement arrived, and the word they used was fractured larynx. The bone inside Steven's throat that protects his vocal cords had broken. The band released a statement saying his doctor had confirmed the injury required ongoing care. The nature of a fracture, they said, required patience. Steven issued his own statement saying he was heartbroken to not be out there and promised he would be back as soon as he could. The remaining 37 shows were postponed to sometime in 2024. When 2024 came, the rescheduled dates were pushed again. And then, on August 2nd, 2024, a Friday afternoon, Aerosmith posted a statement that contained a sentence nobody wanted to read. A full recovery from his vocal injury is not possible. The band had made a heartbreaking and difficult but necessary decision, as a band of brothers, to retire from the touring stage. It had been the honor of their lives to have their music become part of yours. That was it. The instrument that had defined Aerosmith, the rasp, the scream, the absolutely unique quality of Steven Tyler's voice that no producer or collaborator has ever been able to fully describe technically, but that every human being on Earth recognizes inside the first 2 seconds of Dream On. That instrument was broken in a way the best medical team money could buy could not fix. The question that sits underneath that announcement, the one nobody in the official statement was going to address, is how exactly a 75-year-old man's larynx fractures in the middle of a concert. Because the answer to that question requires going back much further than September 2023. So what had really been happening inside Steven Tyler's body long before that Philadelphia show? The relapse that set everything in motion. Steven Tyler has been more publicly honest about his addiction than almost any rock star of his generation, and that honesty makes his story both more admirable and more painful to trace. Because the through line from his first drink as a teenager in the 1960s to the night his larynx fractured in 2023 runs directly through 50 years of substances surgeries, recoveries, and relapses that each left their mark on a body that kept showing up anyway. The drug years in the 1970s were, by his own account, comprehensive. Heroin, cocaine, alcohol, LSD, he has named all of them in interviews across multiple decades with the matter-of-fact tone of someone who has long since stopped being ashamed and started being instructive about it. The band that defined arena rock in the late 70s nearly destroyed itself from the inside. Stephen told Haute Living in 2019 that he and his bandmates became very messed up, that the early 80s were terrible, and that drugs took them down. He was the first to get treatment in 1984, then again in 1986. And by his own assessment, he didn't really get it either time. In 1988, Aerosmith's management and bandmates staged a formal intervention. Stephen, by that point, battling heroin addiction at a level that threatened everything, was forced into treatment. He has since credited that intervention with saving both his life and the band's second act, the remarkable commercial resurgence of the late 1980s and 1990s that produced Janie's Got a Gun, Cryin', and I Don't Want to Miss a Thing, making Aerosmith bigger than they had ever been the first time around. Sobriety held through most of that second act. Then, in the early 2000s, it didn't. Post-surgery pain management triggered a relapse on prescription medication. He entered the Betty Ford Center in 2009 for treatment. He came out talking about addiction as an ongoing process rather than a solved problem. He seemed to understand himself clearly on this specific subject, that the pathway to using was always going to be open. That willingness to seek treatment was the only defense, and that the gap between sober and not sober was always exactly one prescription away. Which is exactly what happened in May 2022. Foot surgery, required to prepare Stephen's body for the physical demands of the Las Vegas residency Aerosmith that was about to begin, required pain management. The opioids prescribed for that pain management triggered a relapse. Stephen voluntarily entered a residential treatment program. Aerosmith canceled the June and July dates of their Las Vegas residency. The band posted a statement explaining that their beloved brother had worked on his sobriety for many years, and after the surgery had recently relapsed. He came out of treatment by July 2022, reportedly doing extremely well. The Las Vegas residency resumed in September. The farewell tour was announced, rehearsals began, the Peace Out production was built. Everything looked like it was back on track for the kind of proper send-off that 5 decades of rock history deserved. And then Elmont happened. A larynx fractured, and the voice that had survived heroin, cocaine, alcohol, multiple surgeries, multiple relapses, and 54 years of screaming for sold-out arenas on every continent finally gave out in a way from which it could not recover. The opioid relapse in 2022 and the larynx fracture in 2023 are not necessarily causally linked by any confirmed medical reporting. But they are adjacent chapters in the same story of a body that had been asked to carry more than most bodies are built for, across more time than most careers survive, and had finally reached a limit. But the voice and the addiction are only 2 parts of what has made the past 3 years genuinely tragic. Because while all of that was playing out publicly, something else was playing out in a Los Angeles courtroom that went straight at Tyler's legacy in a way no vocal injury could. The lawsuit that has been following Tyler since the 1970s. In December 2022, a woman named Julia Holcomb, who later filed under her married name Julia Misley, sued Steven Tyler in a Los Angeles court. The lawsuit accused him of sexual misconduct, sexual battery, and intentional infliction of emotional distress for events she alleged took place beginning in 1973, when she was 16 years old and Steven was approximately 25. According to the lawsuit, Julia first met Stephen just after her 16th birthday at an Aerosmith concert in Portland, Oregon in 1973. She alleged that Stephen brought her back to his hotel room that night and performed various acts of criminal sexual conduct on her. She alleged that the relationship continued for approximately 3 years, that Stephen convinced her mother to grant him legal guardianship over her, which allowed her to travel with him across state lines, and that during that period, he continued to have a sexual relationship with a minor under his guardianship. The lawsuit was filed under California's Child Victims Act, a 2019 piece of legislation that temporarily waived statutes of limitations for childhood sexual abuse cases. Rolling Stone obtained and reported on the filing in December 2022, noting that Stephen's own 2011 memoir had contained a cryptic reference to almost taking a teen bride, language Stephen had previously framed as romantic. Julia's lawsuit quoted that memoir passage directly and framed it very differently. Stephen's legal team filed a denial and a motion to dismiss. His lawyers argued that the relationship was consensual and that his legal guardianship of Julia was relevant. In court filings, Stephen claimed the relationship was consensual despite her being 16, a legal framing that most people reading it found more disturbing than exculpatory. He also requested the suit be dismissed with prejudice. What the court delivered was a partial ruling that his lawyers celebrated loudly. In April 2026, a judge dismissed the vast majority of the lawsuit, specifically the claims arising from incidents in states other than California, ruling they could not be adjudicated in a California court. Stephen's lawyer, David Long Daniels, told TMZ it was a massive win, that the court had dismissed 99.9% of the claims, and that only one incident from California in 1974 remained. The case is scheduled for trial on August 31st, 2026. What the legal team's celebration of that ruling didn't acknowledge is what remained, that a 78-year-old man is going to trial in August for the alleged sexual mistreatment of a 16-year-old that occurred 52 years ago. The dismissal of the multi-state claims was a procedural ruling about jurisdiction, not a ruling about whether the events described in the lawsuit happened. The one remaining California claim still goes to a jury. And Julia's own statement about why she filed was clear. She hoped to expose the corrupt nature of the entertainment industry and hold those who had exploited and allowed exploitation to occur accountable. Stephen has not made a public statement on the allegations beyond his legal filings. His lawyer has made statements. The case moves toward trial. What his daughter, Liv Tyler, herself one of the most recognizable figures to carry his name into the world, has said publicly about any of it is nothing. The family's silence, like Stephen's own, speaks in the way that silence does when there is no good version of what gets said. There is a generation of rock fans for whom Stephen Tyler's name produces immediate warmth. The memories of Dream On, of Walk This Way, of the endless energy of a man who seemed genuinely incapable of standing still. That warmth has not disappeared, but it now exists alongside the knowledge that the person producing it is heading into a courtroom in August to answer questions about what happened to a 16-year-old girl in 1974. Both of those things are simultaneously true, and that is what genuinely tragic means. So how did the person who was already navigating all of this find his way to a stage for 3 more shows in September 2023? And what does the end of Aerosmith actually look like from the inside? The farewell that became an ending nobody planned. The Peace Out Farewell Tour was supposed to be a victory lap. The Black Crowes opening, which was both a great booking and a neat historical rhyme, both bands born from the same era of rock that the mainstream had largely abandoned. Sold-out venues from Philadelphia to Los Angeles, ending on New Year's Eve 2023 in Boston, the city where 5 teenagers had formed a band in 1970 that nobody thought would last. What it became instead was one of the most abrupt, involuntary endings in rock history. The subsequent months were a sustained exercise in hope followed by reality. Stephen worked with specialists while the band waited. The rescheduled 2024 dates were announced with genuine optimism that the injury could be managed enough to complete at least some of the tour. Tom Hamilton, Aerosmith's bassist, told WBUR in an interview that Stephen's recovery was going really well. He said the band was still alive. He put the odds of them doing something in the future at between 7 and 9 out of 10. And then, August 2nd, 2024, arrived. The statement was thorough and final. Aerosmith said they had seen Stephen struggling despite having the best medical team by his side, that a full recovery from his vocal injury was not possible, that they had made a heartbreaking and difficult but necessary decision to retire from the touring stage. They thanked their Blue Army. They said it had been the honor of their lives. They said Stephen's voice was an instrument like no other. What the August 2024 announcement did not say was whether Aerosmith was done entirely or only done touring. Tom Hamilton's own statements in the months since have been careful on this point. He revealed that if they did anything in the future, it would come from Stephen, that he didn't want to push him, that it was a big if. The door to some kind of appearance has not been formally closed, but nobody has been offering specific timelines either. And Stephen, at 78, managing a permanently damaged voice and preparing for a trial in August 2026, has not been making statements about future performances. But there is one more dimension to this story that matters before the picture is complete, and it is the one that most people skip past to get to the headline: what Steven Tyler actually built. In the middle of everything, there is something that keeps getting lost in the coverage, and it matters. Steven Tyler has spent years building something that has nothing to do with Aerosmith's commercial history or his personal notoriety. It is called Janie's Fund, named after Janie's Got a Gun, the 1989 Aerosmith track about a girl escaping domestic abuse that Stephen has said is one of the things he is most proud of. Janie's Fund is a philanthropic initiative Stephen founded in partnership with youth villages to provide mental health treatment, housing, and educational support to girls who have experienced abuse and trauma. The annual Jam for Janie Grammy viewing party he has hosted, including the 2024 edition where he addressed his throat recovery publicly for the first time, has raised millions of dollars for the organization since its founding in 2016. As of recent reporting, Janie's Fund has provided over $20 million in funding to programs serving vulnerable young women. That is not a footnote. It is a substantial, ongoing philanthropic commitment that has operated consistently through every other crisis in Stephen's recent years. He hosted the Grammy party while his throat was still healing. He kept showing up for the cause while the lawsuit was active and the tour was canceled. Whatever complicated picture emerges from the legal proceedings in August 2026, the $20 million that has gone toward helping girls in crisis exists independently of it and will continue to exist regardless of how the trial resolves. Stephen's relationship with his own children also tells a part of the story that the celebrity coverage consistently flattens. Liv Tyler, his daughter with baby Buell, born in 1977, when Stephen was at the height of the Aerosmith chaos, grew up not knowing who her father was, believing for years that her biological father was Aerosmith guitarist Todd Rundgren, who had been in a relationship with her mother. She found out the truth at age 10. The reconciliation and relationship that followed between Liv and her father is one Stephen has spoken about with visible emotion across many interviews. She became one of Hollywood's most recognizable actors. She has said publicly that despite the complicated circumstances of her origins, she considers her father's love real. That relationship, sustained across 50 years of chaos, says something. His daughter Mia Tyler, from his marriage to Serinda Fox, was the one who told people in early 2024 that her father was much better after the throat injury, that she had to yell at him to stop talking on the phone when he was supposed to be on vocal rest. That detail shows that the people who are actually with Stephen are watching him fight to get his voice back and showing up for him while he does it. That doesn't resolve anything complicated, but it is part of the full picture. What Stephen Tyler built across the commercial wreckage and the personal failures and the legal storm includes Dream On and Walk This Way and Sweet Emotion and 54 years of live performance that produced some of the most documented and beloved moments in rock history. It includes a Grammy party that funds services for abused girls. It includes the Sundance Film Festival of Rock, the annual proof that this man, for all his personal destruction, kept showing up to do something outside himself. None of that disappears because his larynx fractured and a lawsuit is going to trial. The tragedy is not that it all went wrong. The tragedy is that it all went wrong alongside all of that. And at 78, Stephen Tyler is carrying both simultaneously in a way that allows for neither clean celebration nor simple condemnation. Do you think Stephen Tyler should ultimately be remembered for the music and legacy he created? Or should the allegations against him redefine how history views him? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.